Hello guys, this is Steno for All YouTube channel. Here we provide you Hindi or English shorthand dictations at different speed. Today I am going to provide you English dictation at which will help you in various steno skill tests. Get ready for 120 word per minute shorthand dictation. Start. The story so far. In March, the Central Board of Trustees (CBT) of the Employees Provident Fund Organization (EPFO) had recommended an 8.5% interest payout to members for financial year 20. At a meeting earlier this month, the CBT reiterated its recommendation after a review to the center. The payout would comprise 8.15% interest based on income from debt instruments, and the balance 0.35% would be credited from the sale of a part of its investments in exchange traded funds capital gains, subject to their redemption by December 31st. The CBT also recommended that such capital gains be accounted for as income on an exceptional basis for 2019-20. Where does the EPFO invest to generate returns? The EPFO uses its corpus estimated at rupees 13 lakh crore, rupees 14 lakh crore in the last fiscal to earn income from investments in debt instruments and equities. Investment in equities is capped at 15%. The remaining funds are invested in debt. The debt component helps the EPFO earn fairly predictable returns, while the equity component has risks associated with fluctuations in the stock market. Based on the EPFO's earnings for the year, the CBT recommends in March an interest rate at which the payouts can be made. The final decision is notified by the Ministry of Labour. What changed this time around? At the CBT meeting in early March, the earnings for 2019-20 were discussed. Debt components expectations were more or less fixed and were in the range of rupees 58,000 crore, rupees 59,000 crore. The ETF disinvestment process was expected to result in estimated capital gains of rupees 3,000 crore. The interest rate recommendation of 8.5% was arrived at based on the estimated earnings. Typically, ETF dilution would have begun thereafter, but by the middle of March this year, equity markets were in free fall as the COVID-19 pandemic triggered a global sell-off. It became clear that the anticipated earnings from ETF dilution could not be realized at the time. At a meeting of the CBT's Finance, Investment and Audit Committee (FIAC), which took place later in March, it was decided that the equity dilution would be put on hold until the stock markets recovered. With the recent improvement in market conditions, the FIAC met again, followed by a meeting of the CBT. It was clear that the debt component had earned rupees 58,000 crore. What remained was the equity component. The CBT recommended that the debt component or the returns that were already in hand would facilitate a payout at 8.15%. The earnings from ETF dilution were projected at rupees 2,700 crore. So the CBT decided to retain its recommendation of 8.5%, of which 0.35 percentage points would be realized based on the sale of equity. This sale could happen any time now depending on how the market performs, but within December 31st. Once the dilution takes place and it becomes clear that returns were indeed as anticipated, the CBT would convey the same to the Labour Ministry and from there on to the Finance Ministry. On approval, the interest rate would then be notified. as External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar and Chinese State Councillor and Foreign Minister Wang Ying negotiated a 5-point agreement which they hoped will lead to a disengagement process between Indian and Chinese troops ranged against each other at the line of actual control LAC. It wasn't just the host Russia that played a part behind the scenes. In fact, the occasion for their presence in Moscow, the Shanghai Cooperation Organization SCO had as a much of a role to play. The SCO was founded in June 2001, built on the Shanghai Five grouping of Russia, China, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Kyrgyz Republic, and Tajikistan, which had come together in the post-Soviet era in 1996 in order to work on regional security, reduction of border troops, and terrorism. A particular goal all these years has been conflict resolution given its early successes between China and Russia and then within the Central Asian republics. The 1996 meeting of the Shanghai Five, for example, resulted in an agreement on confidence building in the military field along the border areas between China, Russia, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, and Tajikistan, which led to an agreement on the mutual reduction of military forces on their common borders in 1997. Subsequently, it helped push the Central Asian countries to resolve some of their boundary disputes as well. In 2001, the Shanghai Five inducted Uzbekistan into the group and named it the SCO, outlining its principles in a charter that promoted what was called the Shanghai Spirit of Cooperation. According to its rules, the organization has two permanent bodies, the SCO Secretariat based in Beijing and the Executive Committee of the Regional Anti-Terrorist Structure RATS based in Tashkent. The SCO Secretary General and the Director of the Executive Committee of the SCO RATS are appointed by the Council of Heads of State for a term of 3 years. However, the venue of the SCO Council meetings moves between the 8 members including India and Pakistan. The SCO has 4 observer states, Afghanistan, Iran, Belarus, and Mongolia, which may be inducted at a later date. Main goals. The SCO describes its main goals, part of its charter that was adopted in St. Petersburg in 2002 as strengthening mutual trust and neighbor lines among the member states, promoting their effective cooperation in politics, trade, economy, research and technology and culture, as well as in education, energy, transport, tourism, environmental protection and other areas, making joint efforts to maintain and ensure peace, security and stability in the region, and moving towards the establishment of a democratic, fair and rational new international political and economic order. No doubt the SCO was eyed with some misgivings by the US and Europe as a result of this, not the least by its desire to build a new international political and economic order, and it was even dubbed the anti-NATO for proposing military cooperation. In 2005, the Astana Declaration called for SCO countries to work on a joint SCO response to situations that threaten peace, security, and stability in the region, indicating the group's strategic ambitions. Western and NATO concerns were heightened heightened a decade later when they placed heavy sanctions against Russia for its actions in Crimea, but China came to its aid, signing a 30-year $400 billion gas pipeline framework agreement, since then helped by the personal bond between Russian President Vladimir Putin and Chinese President Xi Jinping. The SCO has become a platform for Eurasian cooperation in a region rich with energy resources. China's Belt and Road Initiative, which Russia is not a part of but supports and is joined by all members of the SCO with the exception of India, has also become a part of the SCO declarations. Contradictions. India and Pakistan joined the SCO as observers in 2005 and were admitted as full members in 2015. Joining the SCO has been seen as one of the Modi government's more significant yet puzzling foreign policy choices, as it came at a time that New Delhi was looking more keenly at the West and in particular at the maritime quadrilateral with the US, Japan, and Australia. India has explained its membership in both ostensibly clashing groups as a part of its